Hello everyone, welcome again to my live vlog. Today we will be revising the portion that we have studied yesterday. The chapter name is The Making of Nationalism in Europe, and there we will discuss the aristocracy and new middle class, liberal nationalism, a conservatives after 1815, and the revolutionaries. These four session we will revise today. One hour revision plan, 0 to 10 minutes, Europe before nationalism. Habsburg Empire is equal to Patchwork Empire, regions and people. In Bohemia, there was German speaking aristocracy. Lombardy and Venetia were Italian speaking. Hungary, the people speak Magyar. Galicia, Polish speaking aristocracy was there. And in the north, Bohemians and Slovaks were there. In Carniola, Slovenes were there. In south, Croats, and in Transylvania, Romanians were present. Why no political unity? Different ethnic groups were present. These groups speak different languages and different cultures and traditions followed by these ethnic groups. One board, they were all allegiance to the emperor. If you look at the map of the mid 18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation states as we know them today. What we know today as Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdom, duchies, and cantons, whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often, they even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and peoples. It included the Alpine regions, that includes the Tyrol, Austria, and Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the aristocracy predominantly was German speaking. It also included Italian speaking provinces Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the others spoke a variety of dialects. In Galicia, the aristocracy people spoke Polish. Besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire a mass of subject peasant peoples, Bohemians and the Slovaks to the north, and Slovenes in Carniola and Croats to the south, Romans to the east in Transylvania. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. The only tie binding these diverse groups were common allegiance to the emperor. How did nationalism and the idea of nation state emerge? In this paragraph, mainly explains the Habsburg Empire and different regions and peoples present in this Habsburg Empire. Why? What does these different regions and culture contribute? They different regions lead to. They leads to different. They are different ethnic groups and they speak different languages and they have different cultures and traditions. The only thing that was common to them was they were allegiance or loyal to the emperor, and that is they were under the autocratic monarchies within the territories. So they were not sharing a collective identity or a common culture. And the next paragraph, the aristocracy and new middle class. Aristocracy means the dominant class. They were owned large estates, they spoke French, they connected through marriages, and they were small in number. And peasantry. In west, they were tenants and small owners, and in the east, they were serfs. Industrialization was began in England in 18th century, whereas in France and German states, industrialization began in 19th century. New classes occurred due to this industrialization. They were working class and middle class. Nationalism supported by educated liberal middle class. The aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant of the continent. The number of this class were united by a common way of life that cut across regional divisions. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for the purpose of diplomacy and in high society. Their families were connected by ties of marriage. This powerful aristocracy was numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of peasantry. To the west, the bulk of the land was farmed by tenants and small owners, while in Eastern and Central Europe, the pattern of landholding was characterized by vast estates which were cultivated by serfs. So, tenants were in the west and serfs were on the East and Central Europe. In Western and parts of Central Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and emergence of commercial classes whose existence was based on production for the market. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century, but in France and parts of German states it occurred only during the 19th century. In its wake, new social groups came into being, a working class population and a middle class made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals. So what does this middle class made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals? In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were smaller in number till late 19th century. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that ideas of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. So this nationalism or liberalism or abolition of aristocratic privileges was followed by educated liberal middle class people. Next one, the liberal nationalism and slavery. Liberalism is equal to liber. Liber is equal to free. Political liberalism. freedom of individual, equality before law, government by consent, constitution, and representative government. Economic liberalism means free markets, free movement of goods, free movement of capital, protection of private property. Equality before law is not equal to universal suffrage. In revolutionary France, property owning men could vote, women could not vote, men without property could not vote. At the time of Jacobin, universal male suffrage was given briefly for a short time. And in Napoleonic Code, limited suffrage restored women reduced to status of minors. So they have to depend on their fathers and husbands. Sovereign was formed in 1834. Before sovereign, there were 39 states in Germany. 11 custom barriers were there. 5% customs duty was there. Different currencies was there. Different measurements was there. Sovereign is a German custom union initiated by Prussia in 1834. Effects: removed tariff barriers, reduced currencies from 30s to 2, railway expansion that led to economic unity and nationalism. Formula: customs barriers, sovereign lead to economic unity and nationalism. What did liberal nationalism stands for? Ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the idea of liberalism. The term liberalism derives from the Latin word liber, which means free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism had stood for end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution, and a representative government through parliament. 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. Yet, equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote to get elected was granted exclusively to property owning men. Men without property and all women were excluded from political rights. Only for a brief period under the Jacobins did all adult males enjoy suffrage. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced the woman to the status of minor. Subject to the authority of fathers and husbands, throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, women and non-propertied men organized opposition movements demanding equal political rights. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for freedom of markets and the abolition of state-imposed restrictions on movement of goods and capitals. During the 19th century, this was a strong demand of the emerging middle class. Let us take the example of German-speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century. Napoleon's administrative measures had created out of countless small principalities for confederation of 39 states. Each of these possessed its own currency, weights and measures. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods had to pass through 11 custom barriers and pays a custom duty of about 5% each time. Duties were often levied according to weight or measurement of the goods. As each region had its own system of weights and measures, this involved time consuming calculation. The measure of cloth, for example, was the LA, which in each region stood for a different length. An LA of textile material bought in Frankfurt will get you 54.7 centimeter cloth, Mainz 55.1 centimeter, Nuremberg 65.6 centimeter, and in Freiburg 53.5 centimeter. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes, who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. In 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. The creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility, harnessing economic interest to national unification. A wave of economic nationalization strengthened the vital nationalist sentiments growing at that time. Conservatism after 1815. Conservatism wanted to preserve monarchy, church, social hierarchy, property, family, etc. Accepted by They also accepted modern army, bureaucracy, dynamic economy, end of feudalism, end of serfdom. Congress of Vienna in 1815. The participants were Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria. It was hosted by Metternich. And as a result of Treaty of Vienna, in France, Bourbon dynasty was restored. Austria got northern Italy. Russia got part of Poland. Prussia got part of Saxony. Netherlands created with Belgium and Piedmont, Genoa was added. Purpose: to restore monarchies, prevent French expansion, establish conservative order. After 1815, autocratic governments allowed no criticism and no dissent, and censorship was introduced. That is, they controlled the newspaper, books, plays, and songs. Liberal they demand freedom of the press. A new conservatism after 1815. Following the defeat of 1815, Napoleon in 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. Conservatism means a political philosophy that stressed the importance of tradition, established institutions and customs, and preferred gradual development to quick change. European governments were driven by the spirit of conservatism. Conservatives believed that the established traditional institution of the state and society, like the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, property, and the family, should be preserved. Most conservatives, however, did not propose a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by Napoleon that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like monarchy. It could make state power more effective and strong. A modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, and the abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. In 1815, the representative of European powers, that is Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. The Congress was hosted by Australian Chancellor Duke Metternich. The delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. France lost the territories it has annexed under Napoleon. A series of states were set up on boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Thus, the Kingdom of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north. At Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given the control of northern Italy. But the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. In the east, Russia was given a part of Poland, while Prussia was given a portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. Conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. That is, they did not tolerate criticism and dissent and sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic governments. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs and reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom. The Club of Thinkers, anonymous caricature dating 1820. The board on the right lists the rules of club which include the following. First rule was silence is the first commandment of this learned society. Second, to avoid eventually whereby a member of this club may succumb to the temptation of speech, muzzles will be distributed to members upon entering. Everybody were wearing muzzles. The memory of the French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. One of the major issues taken by liberal nationalists who criticized the new conservative order was freedom of press. Next one is the revolutionaries. The main revolutionary was Giuseppe Mazzini. He was born in 1805 in Genoa. He was a member of Carbonari. He was exiled in 1831 at the age of 26. Organization formed by him were Young Italy in Marseille and Young Europe in Bern. Believes nations are natural units of mankind. Italy should be united. Democratic republic. Metternich called him the most dangerous enemy of our social order. Carbonari to exile to Young Italy and Young Europe. During the years following 1815, the fear of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation states as a necessary part of this struggle for freedom. One such individual was the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Born in Genoa in 1805, he became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. As a young man of 26, he was sent to exile in 1831 for attempting revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies, first Young Italy in Marseille and then Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy and German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be the natural unit of mankind. So Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into single unified republic within a wider allied nations. This unification alone could be the basis of Italian liberty. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order. 50 to 60 minutes rapid fire self test. Liber means free. who hosted Congress of Vienna? Metternich, who founded Young Italy? Young Italy Mazzini. When was Sovereign formed? 1834. Which dynasty was restored in France? Bourbon dynasty. Who got Northern Italy? Northern Italy. Prussia. I think Prussia got Northern Italy. Who got part of Poland? I think part of Poland was for Russia. Who spoke Polish in the Habsburg Empire? Gallic people speak Polish. Hope so. Who were the main supporters of nationalism? Educated middle class people. What was the only bond in the Habsburg Empire? They were all loyal to the king. Free Metternich, Mazzini, 1834, Bourbon dynasty, and who got Northern Italy? Northern Italy was for Austria, and Russia got Poland, and Gallia speak Poland. Gallia spoke Polish. Educated liberal middle class supported nationalism. Allegiance or loyalty to the emperor was common in the people of Habsburg Empire. Last 2-minute memory sheet. Liber means free. 1834 Sovereign. 1815 Congress of Vienna. Metternich was from Austria. Mazzini, Young Italy plus Young Europe. 39 states in German Confederation. Patchwork Empire was known as Habsburg Empire is a patchwork empire. Educated liberal middle class, main supporters of nationalism. Freedom of press, liberal demand. Different languages plus different ethnic groups plus different cultures is equal to no political unity. Ask MCQs. One by one. Which of the following was the only bond that united the diverse peoples of Habsburg Empire? Allegiance to the empire. The only bond that united the diverse peoples of Habsburg Empire was the allegiance, that is loyalty to the emperor. Which social class became the main supporter of the nationalism in Europe? Educated liberal middle class. The educated liberal middle class became the main supporter of nationalism because they believed in national unity, liberalism, and equality before law and representative government. The word liberalism is derived from the Latin word liber. Liber means free. The word liberalism comes from the Latin word liber, meaning free. According to 19th century liberals, equality before the law did not necessarily mean universal suffrage. One of the most important NCERT lines is the equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. 19th century liberals believed in equality before law, but they did not support voting rights for all adults. The Sovereign was a custom union. Why? Sovereign is German customs union formed in 1834, initiated by Prussia, removed tariff barriers, promoted economic unity, strengthened nationalism. Who hosted the Congress of Vienna 1815? Duke Metternich. Duke Metternich was an Austrian chancellor. He host of the Congress of Vienna in 1815. He was the architect of the conservative order in Europe. Which dynasty was restored to power in France by the Treaty of Vienna? Bourbon dynasty. Why? The Bourbon dynasty was restored to power in France after Napoleon's defeat as part of the Treaty of Vienna 1815. This was done to restore the old monarchies and conservative order in Europe. Which territory was added to Piedmont to strengthen it against France? Genova. I think Genova was added to Piedmont. Yes. Genova was added to Piedmont by the Treaty of Vienna in 1850. This helped create a buffer state in the south of France to prevent future expansion. Which of the following was accepted by most conservatives? Universal suffrage? No. Freedom of press? No. Abolition of feudalism and serfdom? No. Democratic republics? No. Accepted by most conservative. Abolition of feudalism and serfdom. Yes, most conservatives did not support complete political freedom, but they accepted some modern reforms. Abolition of feudalism, abolition of serfdom, modern army, efficient bureaucracy. They opposed universal suffrage, freedom of the press, democratic republics. Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Italy in Marseille. Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Italy in Marseille to unite Italy into one democratic republic. Young Italy was developed in Marseille, Young Europe was developed in Berne. At what age was Mazzini sent into exile for attempting a revolution in Liguria? 26 years. Mazzini was born in 1805. In 1831, at the age of 26, he was sent into exile for attempting a revolution in Liguria. Memory trick. 1805 he born, and in 1831 he was exiled at the age of 26. Who described Giuseppe Mazzini as the most dangerous enemy of our social order? Duke Metternich. Duke Metternich called Giuseppe Mazzini the most dangerous enemy of our social order. Because Mazzini supported nationalism, wanted democratic republics, opposed monarchies, inspired revolutionary movements across Europe. Which statement is correct? The Jacobins permanently introduced universal suffrage in France. No. They temporarily introduced universal suffrage in France for a short period. The Napoleonic Code restored limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of minor. That's true. Women could vote in revolutionary France. No. Equality before law meant universal suffrage. No. Is the only correct statement. The Napoleonic Code restored limited suffrage, reduced women to status of minors, made women legally dependent on fathers or husbands. The other options are A. Jacobins introduced universal male suffrage only for a short period. Women could not vote in revolutionary France. Equality before law did not mean universal suffrage. Which of the following correctly matches the region with its people or language? Carniola Croats. Transylvania, Slovenes. Galicia, Polish-speaking aristocracy. Bohemia, Italian-speaking aristocracy. Yes, Bohemia, Italian-speaking. No. Galicia was Polish-speaking aristocracy. That is the correct statement. Galicia, Polish-speaking aristocracy. In Carniola, there were Slovenes. In Transylvania, there were Romanians. And Bohemia, German-speaking aristocracy was there. Which sequence is correct? Congress of Vienna to Solverin to Mazzini's Young Italy. Congress of Vienna in 1815, Solverin in 1834. Young Italy was formed in 1831. Mazzini's exile was in 1831. Think so. 1831. First it will be, I hope it will be Congress of Vienna because it was first formed in 1815. Solverin was formed in 1834, so this will not be the answer. After Solverin, Congress of Vienna, no. After Young Italy, Congress of Vienna, no. Mazzini's exile, Congress of Vienna, Solverin, no. Solverin 1834, Congress of Vienna 1815. I don't know the answer. Don't know. Congress of Vienna 1850, Mazzini's exile and Young Italy in 1831 and Solverin in 1834. So the correct answer is Congress of Vienna, Mazzini's exile or Young Italy and Solverin. Yes, but the option given in the answer A option is wrong. Here in the question it is given as Congress of Vienna and Solverin, Mazzini's Young Italy. But correct answer is Congress of Vienna, and after that Mazzini's exile or Young Italy should be there, then Solverin. So the correct answer is A. So this is the correct order and not the option A. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Which of the following was the main aim of the Congress of Vienna? To restore monarchies and establish a conservative order. Why? The Congress of Vienna 1815 aimed to restore monarchies removed by Napoleon, re-establish the conservative order in Europe, prevent future French expansion and maintain peace and stability. Equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. This means all adults had voting rights. No. Liberals believed voting rights and legal equality were different. Women had equal voting rights. No. Property qualifications were abolished. No. Most probable answer will be B. Legal equality were different. Yes, the statement means equality before the law. Everyone is treated equally by the legal system. and universal suffrage. Every adult citizen has the right to vote. 19th century liberals supported the first idea but did not support voting rights for all adults. Which of the following was not a feature of economic liberalism? Government control over the trade. Economic liberalism supported freedom of market, free movement of goods, free movement of capital, protection of private property. It opposed government control over trade. So, government control over trade is not a feature of economic liberalism. The German Confederation created by Napoleon consists of 39 states. The German Confederation created by Napoleon consisted of 39 states. Important facts. The Congress of Vienna 1815 left this 39 state German Confederation unchanged. Who were allowed to vote in revolutionary France? Only property owning men. Why? In revolutionary France, property owning men could vote and get elected. Women could not vote. Men without property could not vote. This is why NCERT says equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. Which one of the following correctly matches the person with his contribution? Metternich, Young Italy. No. Mazzini, Young Italy. Mazzini, Young Europe. That is true. Napoleon Sovereign. No. Prussia, Congress of Vienna. No. It was in Austria. So, Mazzini, Young Europe will be the right answer. Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Europe, Young Italy, founded in Marseille, Young Europe, founded in Bern. Metternich hosted the Congress of Vienna. Sovereign was initiated by Prussia. Congress was hosted by Austria in Metternich and not Prussia. Which of the following was created as a buffer state in the north of France after 1815? I think it will be Kingdom of Netherlands including Belgium. The Kingdom of Netherlands including Belgium was created in the north of France as a buffer state. Purpose of buffer states: to prevent future French expansion and aggression. Quick recall: north of France, Netherlands plus Belgium, and in south of France, Genova was added to Piedmont. Which of the following was the main reason for the emergence of the educated liberal middle class? Growth of feudalism, industrialization and expansion of trade, restoration of monarchies, Congress of Vienna. Emergence of educated liberal middle class. They were formed as a result of industrialization and expansion of trade. The educated liberal middle class emerged mainly because of industrialization, expansion of trade, growth of towns, rise of businessmen, industrialists and professionals. This class later became the main supporter of nationalism. Which statement about the Habsburg Empire is correct? It was a nation state with one language and one culture. No. It was a patchwork empire consisting of many ethnic groups and languages. True. It was ruled by elected representatives. It was created by the Congress of Vienna. B. The Habsburg Empire was called a patchwork empire because it contained many different ethnic groups, languages, cultures, traditions. Example: Germans, Magyars, Poles, Bohemians, Slovaks, Slovenes, Croats, Romanians. The only common bond among them was allegiance to the emperor. Which of the following best explain the connection between sovereign and German nationalism? Sovereign created more customs barriers between German states. No. Reduced custom barriers. Sovereign united all German states politically in 1834. Sovereign was formed in 1834 But does it united all German states? Sovereign created economic unity which encouraged nationalist feelings. Sovereign was secret society formed by Masin. The most probable answer will be C. The Sovereign created economic unity which encouraged nationalist feeling. Sovereign was an economic unity and that contributed to nationalism. Removed custom barriers, encouraged free movement of goods and capital, connected German states economically, made people realize their common interest, strengthened nationalist feelings, and later supported German unification. It did not politically unite Germany in 1834. Making of nationalism in Europe, aristocracy and the new middle class, liberal nationalism, sovereign conservatism after 1815, Congress of Vienna, revolutionaries and Mazzini. Which one of the following was not a demand of 19th century liberals? Which one of the following was not a demand of 19th century liberals? Constitution, they demanded. Representative government, they demanded. Freedom of the individual, they demanded. Restoration of clerical privileges. No. D. 19th century liberals demanded constitution, representative government, freedom of the individual, equality before law. They opposed clerical privileges, autocracy, and absolute monarchy. Restoration of clerical privileges was not a demand of liberals. Which of the following statement is correct about the Jacobins? They restored the Bourbon dynasty. No. They briefly introduced universal male suffrage. Right. They found slavery. No. They hosted the Congress of Vienna. No. B. Jacobins. The Jacobins introduced universal male suffrage for a short period, allowed all adult males to vote regardless of property ownership, and they did not restore the Bourbon dynasty. They does not found sovereign. They did not host the Congress of Vienna. Which of the following groups was excluded from voting rights in revolutionary France? Both men and non-propertied men were excluded from voting rights. In revolutionary France, property owning men could vote, women could not vote, non-propertied men could not vote. Therefore, both women and non-propertied men were excluded from voting rights. Which of the following was a feature of Vienna settlement of 1815? Creation of democratic republics across Europe, restoration of monarchies removed by Napoleon, universal suffrage in all European countries, unification of Italy and Germany. Vienna settlement of 1815. Creation of democratic republics across Europe. No. Restoration of monarchies removed by Napoleon. That is true. Universal suffrage in all European countries. No. Unification of Italy and Germany. No. B. Why? The Vienna settlement 1815 aimed to restore monarchies removed by Napoleon, re-establish the conservative order, maintain peace and stability in Europe. It did not create democratic republics, introduce universal suffrage, unify Italy and Germany. Which one of the following best explains why Metternich considered Mazzini dangerous? Mazzini supported the Vienna settlement. Mazzini promoted monarchy and aristocratic privileges. Mazzini advocated nationalism, liberty and democratic republics. Mazzini supported censorship laws. C. Mazzini advocated nationalism, liberty and democratic policies. S.P. Mazzini was considered dangerous by Metternich because he supported nationalism, fought for liberty and freedom, wanted democratic republics, opposed to monarchies, established after the Congress of Vienna, inspired revolutionary movements across Europe. Therefore, Metternich called him the most dangerous enemy of our social order. And almost got them correct. Ideas you have mastered: Habsburg Empire, aristocracy and middle class, liberalism, universal suffrage, Jacobins, Napoleonic Code, sovereign, Congress of Vienna, conservatism, Metternich, Mazzini, Young Italy and Young Europe. Which sequence is chronologically correct? B. So our revision session is completed. We have successfully completed the revision of this chapter. So bye friends. Hope you revised also.